Are you having a hard time uncovering the prospect's true pain in your sales conversations? From what I see and what I ran into myself, it's due to not knowing the right questions to ask to find these problems or how to navigate these conversations to start to get below the surface and have more thoughtful conversations to find out what their true pain is. When I was new to sales, I fell into this problem all the time. My conversation stayed pretty surface level, and then I just hoped and I prayed something I say just clicked in their mind, and then they wanted to give me all their money. Okay? Now, I did get some sales, but they're pretty inconsistent. It wasn't until I actually learned the right skills, the right things to ask, how to navigate these conversations to get below the surface, that my results became a lot more consistent and they continue to grow. So in this video, to give you a better understanding how to actually navigate those conversations to find the pain, what I do is I break down one of our clients' sales conversations. I go over his discovery and give him feedback on how he's going about his process. So hopefully you'll be able to take some golden nuggets from it and you'll find value. Now, a little bit about who I am if you don't know. My name is Christian Polk. So I've been in online sales for 4+ years. I've closed millions of dollars worth of deals, and I've worked for top companies like AdHack with Ad Outreach, Ryan Pineda, Scaling with Systems, Stock Navigators. And for the past 2 years, I've been with 7th Level and Jeremy Miner, where I've also been a sales coach and I've helped thousands of clients improve their sales and get better results. So when we're talking about getting to the pain, this is one of the biggest things I see people not being able to do, especially at the beginning. And one of the biggest reasons why is how they start the conversation. So I followed the NEPQ process. And the first 3 phases of that process is connection, how do we start the conversation, situation, and then in problem awareness is where we're really being able to get below the surface. But oftentimes I see if we're not being able to get to the pain, it's because we weren't able to get the connection stage down right. Okay. So that's like how we start the conversation. And it's just because we do not have the direction for the call. So the biggest question that I always need to ask when I am on a sales call is, do you know what you're looking for specifically? So I'm talking about inbound leads. Obviously, if you're cold calling somebody, they don't know what they're looking for. But if they come to me, I need to know what they're looking for, because what they're looking for is what they don't have. So if I understand what they're looking for, it gives me a lot more direction on where I need to go. And typically, I'm going to ask a follow-up question of, what have you actually seen so far that would even have you looking at that? So typically, that's when they're going to dive into what their actual pain is. So for example, I sell sales training. So you hop on a call with me, like what attracted your attention to begin with? And then what were you actually looking for specifically as far as any potential help? Oh, well, I'm needing help with objections. Well, okay, when you say objections, what have you actually seen so far in your sales conversations that makes you feel as though you need to get help with your objections? Then they're going to tell me why they need help with their objections. And then I can dive into situation, and then I can dive into problem awareness and really expand on that. But it gives me a lot more direction at the beginning of the call. Okay. So that one's going to be step 1. And then in this review that I did, I dive into his discovery. I'll do an objection handling breakdown later this week. So go ahead, subscribe, all that good stuff for that. But a little bit of background on the offer. So he does a coaching program that helps people get interest-free credit and gives them the skills to go ahead and do that. So let me know if you find this helpful. 4 minutes on.
Hey, Robin, how's it going, sir?
Good to talk to you.
Nice to meet you, man. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I'm talking to the inspector right now, and she's giving me a lot of information for the next project. So
Yes. Sometimes you just got to be in 2 places at once, man. It's
yeah,
That's all right. We'll forgive you this time. Yeah, it's a good joke. It's always good to just kind of like level the playing field a little bit.
unavoidable.
Yeah, so I'm interested to learn about your program. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, man. Did you check out our homework video?
Yeah.
Cool. What stood out about all that?
I'm not oblivious. I know this trick long time ago where you can actually cash out from credit cards that are 0 interest, and balance transfers. So that is the core of your business.
Yeah. card stacking.
That is a trick, but I'm trying to understand what is your company, how do you handle this stuff? There's a lot of private information going to be there, applications and whatnot.
Mhm.
You know, are you a licensed broker? What do you guys do? You
No,
know,
let me
do
give,
it.
let me
Yeah,
give you a
yeah.
framework.
So when a guy hops on like this, you can tell like he's putting first and foremost a focus on you, which is never a good sign. Okay. And then he's already telling you he knows how you guys do it, which obviously he doesn't. That's why he's having the conversation to begin with. So what I would want to do at this point is like, yeah, and like we can definitely go over all those options for sure. We don't really have like one size fits all. It really just kind of depends like where you're at now as far as like how you're getting funding compared to where you want to be to see what that gap would be to see if we could help. And then after we go over all those details and it feels like, it might be what you're looking for, we can go over possible next steps. Like would that help you? Something just to diffuse it and then get it back onto we need to talk about him and what he's looking for rather than the focus on us.
Work, and then we can kind of dive in and
Sure,
see if this
sure.
will be a good fit for you.
Yeah,
Um, we only do one thing,
yeah.
and it's business. So it's called credit card stacking. I like that you call it a trick. I like to call it credit acrobatics.
And it's good that you notice like him calling it a trick, him saying he already knows what you guys are doing is just subtle ways for him trying to lower your status and raise his. Okay. So that's why, again, like we need to just diffuse it, get the focus back on him so we can start pulling out problems and really start to dig into those, like what he's actually running into. That way we can start to raise our status. Because again, if he feels like he already knows what you guys are doing, it's just a trick, that type of thing, then it's going to be hard to get a guy like this across.
We know. Yeah.
But business credit,
Mm-hmm.
0%,
Mm-hmm.
minimum of 12 months. Some go 18 months,
Mm-hmm.
and we deal in big cards. So we're 40, 50, $80,000 cards.
Okay.
So that's kind of the framework of where we'll sit. Uh,
Okay.
it looks like you've had a great conversation here a couple days
Yep.
back last
Yep.
week.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what you're doing. I mean, your credit's good. You're doing some real estate multifamily.
Yep. I am a full-time real estate professional.
Instead of tell me what you're doing, when we're in the connection stage, when we're starting the conversation, me personally, and I feel like it would help a lot, especially because I listened to his call a little bit before to have a little bit more direction as far as like what his problems actually are, is to keep it like on point of what you guys do. So it looked like you had a call previously, just maybe so I can have a better understanding. Like what attracted you or what made you click on that? Like however he came to you, what made him do that? Oh, okay. And besides, the obvious, getting more funding, do you know what type of help you'd actually be looking for specifically? So then, like, I have a lot more direction at the beginning of the call so I can start to understand the situation and start to pull out the pain points and problem awareness.
Okay.
I have one business aspect. Well, let me just focus on the aspect of my business that need the cash, which is
Okay.
me purchasing my own properties, renovate them, bring them up to par, and basically raise the rent or replace the tenant base. And we usually refinance and get out, or
Right.
refinance. I mean, refinance and jump on another deal,
Yeah.
or sell at some time.
Right.
Okay.
So I have close to 14 units right now,
Uh huh.
and I'm in the process of going on contract on another 10 units,
Right.
all of which need capex, meaning renovation and construction. And I like to have access to capital. Basically, if it's at 0% for 12 months, then that's even merrier.
Yeah,
And so
100%.
that's what I'm looking for, basically. You know what I'm saying? I always need.
Okay. So it's good that he did tell you what he's looking for, but in case like somebody like this or somebody else, they're not always just going to come out right and say it like that. But once you understand like what he's looking for, that's when we need to direct it. And then at that point, understanding that that's what we need out of the connection stage, dive into the situation phase.
I need to have cash in my hand at my own disposal for about 12 months. And maybe after the cycle finishes, if it doesn't really hurt my credit, of course, I don't want it to hurt my credit, is to go
Right.
on another cycle, maybe, you know what I'm saying, and keep it going, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
your program
I don't
shows
know
that
what he's saying.
that's possible without doing anything illegal and without accumulating anything on my personal credit, which I'm interested in that. So if I'm gonna go apply for a loan, they're not gonna see these balances, right? Or are they gonna be able to see it, or what's going on? How can we see this stuff? Yeah.
That's the beautiful part of all this is you can, we have a certain capacity over here, and what we specialize in
Hmm.
on that is stacking funding for the long term. So,
Hmm.
I know you're looking for capital. I think you told 100K, but listen, you know, would you be open to doing multiple rounds of funding, like year after year, multiple LLCs?
Hmm.
You could stack up hundreds of thousands of dollars of funding on the sidelines.
Right.
Yeah. Does
Yeah,
does that
absolutely. I mean, we're not stopping. We're always looking for opportunities, and we're looking for to grow our business and
yeah,
increase the number of doors that we have and properties. So it's definitely yes.
great. I love your ambition. Um, and tell me a couple quick questions, and then what I'll do is happy to jump in and just kind of walk you through the whole system. Um, Tell me, what are you doing for funding now?
Okay, good.
I have loans, and I have personal cash that I'm using to go to the LLCs and use them that way. We
Okay,
also have income. I have my wife has a W-2 job,
Hmm.
and I have income coming from properties.
Okay.
okay, love it. So you're doing the game of using existing properties and
Yeah.
pulling cash out, and refinancing and buying new ones, and
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
in the mortgage world,
Yep.
qualifying for mortgage. Any
Like how
hard
long?
money lending?
How long has he been
I'm
doing that
looking at
for?
a bridge finance right now.
Okay,
Yep.
what's terms on something like that?
So we really need to understand like how long he's been using his current strategy for, because it'll put it a lot more in context.
Terms usually is like maybe 10 to 15% down, and they finance the purchase price and maybe 100% of the work to be done, the capex.
Okay,
Usually it's about, I think, like 2 to 3 years, you know what I'm saying? But the percentage, of course, is high because it's bridge financing, so it's temporary lending kind of thing. It's not a long-term loan.
sure.
Um, of course, if there's any way for me not to do that, and not pay the interest, I'll be more than happy to do that. Maybe possible with your credit card stacking option. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
yeah. Hmm.
But potentially, I don't want to ask like two obvious questions, but I don't want to assume like why wouldn't you want to go that route? So I want to expand on his actual pain points because that's what it now without you going into it, that's where it seems like his pain points would be. Like he obviously wants to save money on like interest on either doing like the refinancing or the hard money lending, but we need to get him to say it rather than just assuming it.
Okay. Uh, 10, 15%.
And if it is something to where it seems a bit obvious, you can always say, well, kind of obvious questions, but I don't want to assume. So you can kind of level with them a little bit, and then they're going to be more open to actually answer that question.
And plus points on those
Hmm.
bridges.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, of course,
that's
yeah,
typical. That's
yeah,
that's a lot of what we see.
yeah.
Okay, good. And uh,
And and a good thing you can do, especially when we're talking about like, let's say hard money lending, 10, 15%. Let's quantify it more. How much would he be taking out in hard money lending? Is he just taking out like, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200, 500,000? Like what would he actually be taking out? And then what would be the interest on that? Oh, so like 20% on 100,000. So we're talking about you be paying like over 20,000 in interest. Oof, yeah, that could be trouble. I could definitely see why you might be looking for some other options to, to get funding. Right. So quantify it a little bit more to just make it more real.
uh, I always like to ask, what's kind of your stretch goal? 3, 5 years we're talking from now. Where are you? Where do you want to be?
Just to double my number of properties and grow bigger.
Okay.
My net worth as well.
Keep the units growing.
Of
What
course,
what's
we buy
doubling?
and we buy and hold. Yeah.
I love it. I've been in real estate for 25 years, and
Nice.
I tell new investors, I said it's easier to own 100 properties than it is to own.
See, that's good because you're leveling yourself up. Like I've been doing this for a long time. So like that's good right there. I would say digging more into what is double. What do you mean by like increase your net worth? Get more tangible goals so that way you can dive more deeper into it.
Own two or three.
Correct. That's
'Cause
right.
now you got a business
Right.
with a couple of units. You've got a part-time job,
Right. Absolutely. It's a lot of work. Yep.
and let's see, down payments, renovations. Man, I get where you are. And what's the biggest problem that you're experiencing? Like
Just running out of cash.
okay,
You know?
what problems does that cause when you?
Well, I'm not able to grow. I mean, I have emergency funds, of course, but I'm trying to put down payments. I'm trying to renovate, and
Mm,
the loan, the down payment for a loan is itself 25%, right?
yeah.
So
Right.
that's anywhere between $100 to $200,000.
Yeah.
And if I exasperate that, I just run out of funding. Basically, I have no
Right.
access to capital to go to next
Mm,
projects or to
Yeah,
buy and flip a house or whatever I want to do in the future. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So
that sounds aggravating.
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Very
then
much
and
so.
then I'm assuming then
So you got to an emotional pain point, which is good. Okay. So it's good that you know, like, okay, we're getting to an emotional pain point. Personally, I'm not going, like, I don't like you labeling your words on someone else because it could be the exact same feeling. Like, he's feeling, but he might verbalize it differently. So let's say, okay, so just run through the scenario. I'm having a hard time growing. What does growing mean? Well, how do you mean by like growing? And can you give me an example, like, when something like that's happened? How long have you been running into this issue? So I need to quantify it. So I need to ask a couple more questions. I need to clarify what he means, how long it's been going on, and then we can ask him how it feels. It's like I don't want to assume I run my business. I don't run yours, but not being able to grow the way you want, like how does that actually feel on your end? What do you mean by frustrated? Ah, okay. So just take a little bit more time, just ask 2 to 3 more questions. And then once he says the word that he feels, because it might not be the same one that you think it would be, because he might mean the exact same thing that you do, but you just use a different word. Personally, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna write that word down, and that's what I'm gonna leverage like further on in the conversation. When I dig into consequence, when I'm in the presentation, when I'm in objection handling, I'm using their words because that's what they're going to resonate with. And then I'm going to even dig deeper because when they're like, oh, that'd be frustrating. Well, how do you mean by frustrated? Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from. So just a couple layers deeper in the discovery to get to the real pain on this guy. But he's being open, which is good. We just need to ask a couple more questions.
if you're in that, well, then you're in the one-off game. So you're in one, and you got to
Mhm.
finish that, close
Right.
it before.
Right.
And
Right.
how
Like
many
we're
deals?
telling him.
Do you see deals pass you by that you can't get to because
Oh yeah.
you're
Of
waiting for
course.
the closing? Okay.
Yeah. Of course.
So if you had capital, how much faster do you think you could double?
Double the time. You know,
Okay.
So
I can
twice as
expedite
quick.
it in 50% or so.
Yeah. 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 Okay. I get that. Sounds like you're committed to fixing this.
Of course.
Okay.
Instead of again, we're assuming we can ask, right? So a couple things I would say is just get more specific on the numbers. When you say double, like how do you mean specifically? Like what is double? Like what are you at now? When you say half the time, like with your current pace, like how long do you think it would take you? If he's telling you he's gonna save 5 years, like that's a big deal. Oh, you're gonna save 5 years, like getting more capital. I mean, like some people like are totally fine like taking the slow route. Is that something you're actually committed to changing? Like why do it now? Why not do it later? Right. So it's ask him those questions, make it more tangible. That way it's going to be more real in his mind. And instead of you assuming you putting that statement on him, just ask the question. So a good thing that you could start to do is, and I would listen back to your own calls, but every time you make a statement, see in your mind if there is a way that you could have asked that in a question.
Okay, I love it. All right. Anything else you want to share that we haven't talked about?
All right. So that's it for me going over the discovery. So I'll do another call going over the objection handling and how to have better direction in the objection handling of this call as well over the next day or two. So I'll get that out. So like, subscribe, comment, and like what you want me to go over next. So really, I would say the main takeaways when it comes to the feedback I was giving, like I said, is having a better direction and then not assuming, asking the question using their words so you can start to dive deeper on their actual pain and then asking those extra questions to go deeper, probe, and that's where that real pain is. So hopefully this is helpful, and let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything else you want me to cover.